But that's the one thing. If what happened in France didn't just stick with France, it scared the shit out of all the monarchy in Europe.
Yeah, and that hysteria, the monarchist hysteria and the repression that followed it to suppress republicanism in Europe, it essentially culminated in like 1848, all the revolutions that took place across Europe, right? The people were radicalized, like going back to what Nika said, right? Uh, it was the oppression that radicalized the people and sent them towards violent, uprisings across Europe. And I view parliamentary republicanism and democracy as like the middle ground that was reached between the aristocrats and the bourgeoisie, or whatever you want to call them, the middle class. And that's what liberal European, at least European liberal democracy is. It's the middle ground. It's not this way or that way,
Good
right?
point.
It was the middle ground that was reached, that could was amenable to all powers, all estate in Europe. So yeah.
Yes, sorry, I cut out, but to what Vaughn was saying, like, yeah, you're right. Britain is nominally a monarchy, and it has all this, suicidal tendencies for a nation. But the same thing happens with Germany, which is not a monarchy, and the same thing happens with France, which is not a monarchy. So it's not an issue, like, and that's my point, that it's not an issue of monarchy versus republicanism. It's an issue of priorities, and incentives of profit for the ruling class, and so it's not that it improves if you take out monarchy, or it improves if you put in a monarchy. It's a different issue altogether, because
Well,
you don't.
the entire EU is a monarchy. I mean, it's Queen von der Leyen, and you all do what you're told by the Queen, or you don't get more money, you get penalized, you get fined. I mean, it's a monarchy. That's why it's fucked up.
It's I think the issue is accountability, right? If a monarch who is accountable to his people, it can be a better alternative to democracy, I think. Like I personally think, right? If the government is accountable to
It
a
would be it
people,
would be more stable. It would be more
yeah,
stable, yeah.
that's the concept of the philosopher king, right? And it'll be more stable, it'll be beneficial to the the people. There will be less corruption and the whole shebang. But then it's hard. The concept of the philosopher king, the ideal monarch, the divine monarch, is also kind of a utopia, right?
But the thing is, in the East, for example, in Muslim countries, a good percentage, we didn't have like a heavenly. Sorry, but the noise. I will wait for the noise going up.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't divine, right? Like you cannot claim in Islam, you cannot claim to be divine. There's only the prophet, of course. But there is still like
Yeah, people try
beliefs.
to. Yeah, but we had our share of crazy rulers, but there were more dynamism and changing monarchies, but it went like with bloodlines. Even with bloodlines, there is like checks and balances. So if you go too much on the board, people will revolt because you are emphasized not to accept any um, uh, like. Uh, like the ruler have some limitations. Not he's not he cannot like say no, it's my godly right to do that and this. No, you will be accountable for the population. There's a threshold in increase or decrease, but for example, as I told you, it's even from the same family, if they think that the threat of that crazy monarch will threaten the whole family, the whole ruling family. They will like even banish him or put him in prison or kill him and replace him with a more modern way. So it's like a kind of like medieval balance and check.
Yeah, that was also present
Yeah.
in Europe. Also, same thing.
Well, the thing is, guys, that at least in modern history, the deposition of a ruler, of a monarchic ruler, like tied to the land and to the people, has been consistent with a collapse of living standard for the population. It has been the case. Like the only exception might be the Soviet Union, but it's hard to argue for that, like without more information on it. But the like when Cromwell executes the King of England, after that comes the enclosure of the Commons, where like all the people who lived off the land for centuries suddenly become vagrants and have to be deported or imprisoned. Um, France after the revolution, they have social chaos, collapse of institutions, reign of terror, and then they get Napoleonic Wars where hundreds of thousands of them die and all the resources are siphoned into a project of controlling Europe that ends up leaving them broke, destitute, demilitarized, and back with the monarchy. Then when the Spanish ruler was replaced by the French monarchs, the Bourbons. So it was basically like a political takeover of Spain, and the rulers collapsed. The Austrian rulers collapsed. And that was also a civil war. And it was also like inspired by Enlightenment ideals. So like we're gonna modernize to French standards and abandon these old ways of the Spanish monarchy. Um, Also, again, like all the public lands that were used for shepherding and for herding and for agriculture, they were all privatized, and the population of Spain collapsed. Like as a economically collapsed. All their source of income, not to mention the later destruction of their own economy and empire. So, like again, there can be good ideals, and maybe there's some form of progress, but the consistent pattern has been like the disenfranchisement of the people and the loss of accountability on the leaders. And like to what Vaughn was saying about Ursula von der Leyen being a monarch, she's the absolute opposite of a monarch. She's a nobody who has no stake in the game, who's just there for the grabs, and that's going to be kicked out into another cushy position whenever her destruction rampage is over. Like it's the opposite of a monarch. It's someone who has no ties to, no stakes in the game, and who's just there to grab whatever it can while it can. And that's the pattern of democracies. Like politicians are there for the grabs. But there's exceptions, and maybe there's democracies that actually work, but it depends again on the like national interest of the rulers. Is that a thing, or is it just propaganda? And that's what you see in on the ground. You see it in the facts. Like, does a nation actually protect its interests and its people or not? I don't know. Maybe in Sweden they do. It seems like they probably do, but
No,
who knows?
no, before I let Mehdi and Upgrade speak, I just wanted to add that um, it's you know um, it's easier to combat corruption and take look after the national interest or the interests of the people in a non-democratic country where you are the absolute ruler, not a non-absolute ruler, but the absolute ruler without authority, like without question, right? Then you are directly only accountable to the people, and the only thing that can remove you from power are the people revolting. And a good example of this is Joseph Stalin, right? Brutal ruler, undoubtedly did horrible stuff, but he uplifted the fucking Soviet Union from a little agrarian uh, dump to a little superpower. And his paranoia played part in it because he was afraid of his people. And this ties into what Gabriel said. Uh, like leaders like Van der Leyen and other of this EU, they are not afraid of the people. They are afraid of losing their own cushy jobs. and their own salaries and all their own paychecks, and that makes them unaccountable to the people, and the interests of the people are not their top priority. Their own interests are.